Welcome to this presentation by Ashley on music and dementia. And we're happy that this is sponsored Griswold Care Pairing. And we've got Herm from that organization with us. Can you tell us what Griswold is all about?
Sure. We are a licensed nurse registry here in the state of Florida, serving Seminole and Orange counties. We provide caregivers primarily in the homes, although we can go into facilities and whatnot, to perform mostly personal care, bathing assistance, toileting, dressing, feeding, continence care, safety supervision, and so on.
Fantastic. And what you've got kind of a different model for your home care that makes it less expensive. Can you get into that a little bit?
Sure, there's two models in the state of Florida and here in Central Florida to deliver non-medical home care service through a business. One of them is a nurse registry. That's how we're licensed, and that's how probably 50% of my competitors in the area are licensed. Our caregivers are independent contractor by definition, but those same caregivers that are registered or partner with us, they're employed by that other 50% of the models. The model, there's other companies that make up the other model, the employee model or the agency model, but it's just the same pool of caregivers. Sometimes they're partnered, sometimes they're employed. They all have to abide by the same regulations and requirements, credentialing and so on. We don't have the cost of the other model with the payroll taxes and whatnot. So typically this model, the nurse registry model, will be, $3 to $5 an hour less than that other model.
Okay, but you still do the same background checks, right?
Oh, it's all the same. The requirements are exactly the same for both models for a nurse, certified nurse assistant, home health aides that comprise our roster of caregivers.
Okay, and do you do specific training for dementia?
Well, we do not, but in this particular office, the one that my wife and I own and operate, we concentrate on caregivers that have 5 or more years of experience. And then on top of that, though, maybe more to your question, the state of Florida Department of Elder Affairs has requirements in place as of July 1st of 2 years ago, where there's a 1 hour training that they provide, and then there's an additional 2 hour requirement as well. So all caregivers have at least that base, but most of them have gotten the experience they need through the fact that 40% of our clients have memory loss conditions of some type or another.
And I understand that dementia is not just a disease you deal with your clients, but it also affects a lot of your office staff. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, up until a recent hire, I could make the statement that everybody on my team has been a caregiver or, externally or with their own family, and everybody in this office, except for that new employee who's so young, are experiencing parents with dementia, Alzheimer's, and other, memory type things.
And then the name of your business is Care Pairing, Griswold Care Pairing. So
Correct.
what is that about?
Well, the Griswold comes from the namesake Jean Griswold. 40-something years ago, she was a Presbyterian minister's wife. Somebody in the congregation passed, and this service wasn't available there in that Philadelphia area. She thought it would have made a difference, so she started Griswold Special Care. The name's changed several times, including recently. We were Griswold Home Care until a year or so ago, but with a rebrand, we are now called Griswold Care Pairing, which I happen to like. It's very appropriate because that's essentially what we do. We pair caregivers with families in need, of caregivers.
That's awesome. And how would somebody reach out to you, Herm?
Well, they certainly can find us on the internet, but our phone number is 407-740-7419. Maybe folks also can just recall us from not that there's an association, but the vacation movie with Chevy Chase, the Griswold family. There's a good way to
Yes,
remember us as well.
that
So
is a good way. Well, thank you so much for partnering with ADRC for this, and we are going to turn it over to Ashley. Thanks again, Harm.
thank you
Yeah,
for the opportunity.
thank you.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Thanks, Robin. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Music and Dementia. My name is Ashley Gravatt. I am the Director of Arts and Wellness for the Alzheimer's and Dementia Resource Center, Positive Approach to Care Certified Trainer. I also have a background in music therapy and a grad certificate in music therapy, and my bachelor's of music from Boston Conservatory. And so I'm really excited today to talk about music and how beneficial it is for the person that you're caring for. This presentation is geared towards care partners and how they can use music in the home. A little bit about ADRC. We are a nonprofit organization and we really support our care partners, and we've been doing this for over 40 years. We are a positive approach to care designated organization, and that means that a lot of our education, our workshops, when we do care coachings, is going to be based in that model. We are a local resource center. We provide resources for you, just like Herm was here talking about his organization. We have a lot of community partners that we work with, and if there's something specific that you're looking for, we can definitely get you connected. We provide a variety of support groups, anywhere from a men's support group, Spanish speaking support group, a group for adult daughters and adult granddaughters. Some are in person and some are virtual. So if you're interested in support groups, I'd love to get you connected with one of those. As I spoke about care coachings, this is an opportunity for our care partners to have a one-on-one conversation with us, and we help build a roadmap for your care journey. And then we are also a part of the State of Florida Brain Bank. This is a post-mortem research study to help find a cure for dementia. This is no cost to the family, and we take care of all of the transportation costs, the procurement, and then the family does get an autopsy report at the end. So if you'd like more information about that, I can also get you connected. We also offer a resource called the Music Box Initiative, which I will get into at the end of this presentation. But today I'm here to talk about the purpose of music and how it affects the brain, why music is so important for a person living with some form of dementia, and how to use music to connect with our person living with some form of dementia. And I'll also go through some basic instruments that you can either purchase on your own or you can receive through an inquiry with the Music Box Initiative. So some things that we're going to explore today. Music is a universal human experience. It plays a vital role across many cultures and age groups, and this makes it a really powerful and accessible tool for enhancing not only our life as a care partner, but the life of our person living with some form of dementia. And it's so much more than just entertainment. We're going to talk a lot about research in this presentation, and scientific research has shown that music can influence both our physiological and our psychological processes, so it contributes to both our physical and our mental well-being. It's a non-pharmaceutical intervention. I'll talk a little bit about social prescribing, but essentially music can serve as a complementary approach to traditional treatments, potentially reducing our reliance on certain medications and a costly pharmaceutical care. And it's a flexible tool. We can use it in so many different settings. We can incorporate it into our everyday environments, our home, care centers, community spaces, and it helps to just create a calming, engaging, and supportive atmosphere. I also like to start by saying that you can do this. I know a lot of care partners, when we talk about music and how to start using it with their person, they don't know what to do, but I'm going to help guide you today and give you some tips and strategies on how to get started, and you can do it. You don't need any formal training in music. And I love this quote by Oliver Sacks. He's a well-known neurologist. He wrote a book called Musicophilia that I highly recommend. But from his book, he says, "One does not need to have any formal knowledge of music, nor indeed to be particularly musical, to enjoy and to respond to it at its deepest levels. Music is part of being human, and there are no human cultures in which it is not highly developed and esteemed." So some of the benefits that we see with music, and particularly for those living with some form of dementia, is life review and reminiscence. This is the big goal that we have when we listen to music. Evoking memories from the past. We have a deep connection to our life and to life events related to music and our association to music. And so we can help our person access those through listening to music. It helps with memory recall. So that's tapping into our brain's ability to bring stored information to the forefront in the correct order, which is really important to our language and how we communicate with one another. Music can help with our person's awareness and orientation. As the disease progresses, our person struggles with orientation and awareness. Who am I? Where am I? Who am I with? And so music can help bring them into the present moment and increase their awareness to their surroundings. It can increase our sensory stimulation. Music is a multi-sensory experience. We use our ears, we use our eyes when we are watching a performance, when we're hearing the sounds. It's tactile when we're touching an instrument or we're holding something. It is interactive. So we're using a lot of our senses when we're in a music experience. It helps with our social stimulation. Yes, we can listen and be independent, but we can also engage others in music. It's a group experience or two people experiencing something together. So it really helps with those feelings of isolation. It can help reduce anxiety and stress. We'll get into that later on in the presentation, as well as our perception of pain. Listening to pleasurable music, it increases and releases brain opioids, which can reduce that perception of pain. And studies show that music can trigger the brain to release these chemicals and distract our body from what it's feeling. And then it supports emotional capital. That's essentially our trust in one another, our ability to be empathic, and having a positive connection to someone else. Happiness is built through connection, right? And as our person progresses, as their disease progresses, they struggle to find those feelings of happiness as their dopamine and serotonin levels drop and cortisol rises. And so by creating these moments of connection, we're really enabling our person to be able to access their feelings of happiness. So there's four main benefits to music when it comes to our body and how our body functions. So there's a physiological response, and that can look like regulating our blood pressure, our heart rate, and our respiratory rate. Behaviorally, it can help reduce feelings of depression, anxiety, agitation. I'm sure if you're caring for someone, you may have experienced sundowning, so it can help alleviate those behaviors and feelings. And then cognitively, helping decrease stress, increasing relaxation, socialization, and connection to one another, and also emotional response. It helps increase our communication skills, sometimes our verbal skills, overall contributing to our quality of life, and both verbal and nonverbal expression, as well as reminiscence. Studies have shown that singing can actually improve our lung capacity, which boosts our immune system. So having to sing, you have to take a deep breath, right? And let out a sound. So that is really helping our immune system. And studies have also shown that music provokes changes in our blood circulation due to the feeling of our pulse, right? Our pulse has a rhythm to it. And in turn, that can calm our breathing and ease any symptoms of anxiety. I know anxiety and stress can be a trigger for our people. So I talked a little earlier about the music and its association to our life. So music, it stimulates our residual memory. So many life events are marked by music. Have you ever heard the term like our life has a playlist? So if you think about your life in terms of a playlist, what songs would be on that playlist? The associations we have with music throughout our lives become deeply ingrained in our long-term memory. And that's what we want to access for our person, because short-term memory is harder to access for them, right? So those that we really want to hone in and pull and draw on those long-term memories that are stored long before the disease had taken effect. And music touches our emotions. A famous researcher, Michael Tout, says that it actually triggers a cognitive boost to orient them to the immediate reality. One could say, oh, they remember music from when they were 15 years old and they feel like a 15-year-old again. But no, they're not suddenly acting like they're 15. The music gives them a sense of orientation in the here and now and in an identity. That is part of my life. I know who I am. In a different experiment, Michael Tao reports that music has boosted cognitive functioning. Findings similar to what Connie Tomeno had seen in the 90s, Alzheimer's patients who listened to a personal playlist of favorite music daily talked about what they could remember with their spouse or caregiver for 1 hour a day for 4 weeks, showed significant improvement in memory tests. That's significant, right? So for our person living with dementia, that transfer between short-term and long-term memory is disrupted. So we really want to tap into that long-term memory and that reminiscent aspect. Music is one of the first things that we respond to at the beginning of life, and one of the last things that we respond to that may never leave our person at the end of life. In utero, we hear rhythm, we hear our mother's heartbeats, the cadence of her speech, and so we just have this intrinsic response to music and rhythm that stays with us through the end of life. So I want you to take a moment now to think about your own musical associations. What does it remind you of someone in your past? What feelings come up? Is it feelings of joy, sadness, excitement? Music can add specific feelings to our emotions. The structure, the sound, the elements can support a vast array of emotions. So just take a few minutes now and jot down a couple of songs that would be really meaningful for you. And once you have your songs, I encourage you to share those with your person, because just as much as their musical interests and their personal life soundtrack is important for them, it's important for you to share, and you may share a common theme in that song. We're going to move into where music happens in the brain, because it is one of the things that happens in multiple parts of the brain. So simply listening to music, it activates that frontal lobe. And we see this in fMRI imaging, and that frontal lobe, it's responsible for movement, expressive language, our executive functioning. And these skills, they underlie the capacity for us to plan ahead, to meet our goals, to display self-control, and follow multiple step directions. And when that's interrupted, and when we're interrupted, it helps us to stay focused. So we really want to help our person with those executive functioning skills using music. And understanding of music happens in two different parts of the brain. Both sides of the brain are activated with our understanding of music, because there's appreciation of the music as well as language interpretation happens on the left, while rhythm happens on the right side. And so we're using both sides of the brain while we're simply listening to music, because our brain is instinctively trying to comprehend the lyrics and then also understand the rhythm. It's pretty fascinating. And then there's muscle memory, and this is important for those who have played an instrument later on in their life. We have a muscle memory for playing that instrument, and our brain remembers that from throughout our life. I have seen it in my work. When I worked in a skilled nursing facility in the Upper East Side of Manhattan, I worked with a gentleman, and I found out that he was a piano player at the Copacabana in New York City for 40 years. And he was living with severe Alzheimer's disease at the time. He had also lost his vision. He didn't know who he was or where he was or who his wife was. But the minute we sat down and had a one-on-one music experience, it was as if there was nothing was wrong with him. He was able to tell me what song to sing. There was always a story related to the song. He talked about playing Stormy Weather by Lena Horne, or with Lena Horne and Ella Fitzgerald, and what notes I was singing incorrectly, and I didn't have the rhythm right in this place. And he would use his fingers as he was listening, because I would be playing on guitar and singing, and he would be playing the air piano. And so his brain was envisioning what the music was on the paper and what the keys were doing. It was really, really fascinating to watch and be a part of. And ultimately that afternoon, he was able to have meaningful relationship and a meaningful conversation with his wife, whereas in the morning they had trouble communicating. Another story came out of an article from AARP talking about Tony Bennett. As I'm sure many of you know, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And the writer says, I saw a man unable to converse, who barely registered my presence, and who, I was told by his wife Susan, had forgotten the use of common objects like a fork or keys. Yet when his longtime piano accompanist began to play, Bennett, at the sound of the first notes, came alive, walked to the piano, and proceeded to perform impeccably an hour of music from his set, recalling every lyric, every crescendo, melody, and physical gesture. And like I said, I've had my own experience with that, and it's pretty incredible. So listening to music may seem simple and straightforward, but we have learned that through research about how our brains and our bodies receive and interpret that music. Another study found that residents in a nursing home who listened to preferred music daily had significantly lower symptoms of anxiety than those who did not. And we cannot say that we are reversing the disease because it has a certain biological process, right? The brain is going to progress and change and ultimately die. But we know, for instance, that the music it's not destroying the amyloid plaque or the tau tangles that we believe to be the cause of memory loss, but in areas of the brain, activating preserved networks gives people a cognitive boost that allows them to operate and function in a better way. This next slide, I love this demonstration, but as you can see with the red is familiar music. So music this person has heard before and they know well. There's many different parts of the brain that are being ignited and activated by listening to that music. Whereas the blue is new music, so music they've never heard before, only uses a small portion of the brain. Very interesting. I love being able to see that, through an image that way. So there are two types of music interventions. There's a receptive experience, and so that's simply just listening to music, enjoying it, relaxing to the music. And then there's an active experience, and that would be singing, dancing, clapping, or playing instruments. And both have benefits, receptive experience and an active experience. So I'm going to teach you a little rhyme or limerick. But if you look at this slide here, you can see on the left side of the brain, that's where our analytical side is and our math side. And then on the right side of the brain is where our creativity lies, where our music is stored. And so we have language on the left. If everybody wants to join me, language on the left, rhythm on the right. We lose on the left, retain on the right. So language on the left, rhythm on the right, we lose on the left, retain on the right. And so we retain our ability to express ourselves musically through poetry, prayer, and song. Research continued. This is out of the Journal of Prevention of Alzheimer's Disease, and they published an article saying that all memories, regardless of how vivid they seem to us, are electric and chemical signals in our brains that travel through a network of neurons. We believe music will tap into the salience network of the brain that is still relatively functioning with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. And the salience network is a collection of regions in the brain that select which stimuli our brain's going to give attention to. This network has key nodes and is critical in detecting behavioral relevant stimuli and for coordinating the brain's neural resources in response to this stimuli. And so by using music, we're able to tap into all these different networks in the brain. Researchers found that music activates the brains, causing these whole regions to communicate. And as we listen to our personal soundtrack, we have a visual network, the salience, executive, and other networks there showed significantly higher functional connectivity. They've also found that when participating in musical activities, it can actually change the structure of the brain and how those neurons are fired. It's also the only sensory experience that is processed throughout the whole brain at the same time. Conchetta Tomeno is the executive director and co-founder of the Institute of Music and Neurologic Function. And she says, we've done research where after we have engaged somebody in singing a familiar song, that person is more apt to be able to identify an object on a table that they couldn't prior to the singing. She says this works because singing familiar lyrics primes or stimulates areas of the brain involved with the verbal processing. It bypasses the whole thinking about how to do something skill that's often damaged. When you ask someone with dementia to do something, they first have to think, what do you mean? What are you asking me? Music can help with that transference from short-term to long-term memory. We know our person living with some form of dementia, they don't have the same access to their short-term memory. And so we're really relying on memories that are stored in their long-term memory. Music can support that transference from short-term to long-term memory. I'm sure all of you have heard some song or limerick that's helped you remember something. We have a song connected to the ABCs or the state capitals, things like that. And so sometimes we can use songs, and I'll show you in next couple of slides how to help our person do tasks of daily living, those activities of daily living. Music can help with and help maintain those skills. Music has the ability to bypass some of the damaged neural pathways to allow for healthier parts of the brain to function, or in some cases create new neural pathways altogether. I'm sure some of you have heard the story of Gabby Gifford. She's, I believe, a state representative of Arizona, and she suffered a traumatic brain injury and lost her ability to speak. And so through her use of music and music therapy, they helped her speak again. They used the song "The Sun Will Come Out Tomorrow," and they would change the lyrics to be whatever it is you are asking her to be or to do. One example I like to use for our care partners is the song sung by Peggy Lee, "Yes, It's a Good Day." Yes, it's a good day for singing a song. Yes, it's a good day for moving along. Yes, it's a good day. How could anything be wrong? A good day from morning till night. So you can take that song, that little lyric, and you could place something else that you want them to do into that spot. So if you change the lyric slightly, it's a good day to go for a walk. Yes, it's a good day to have a good talk. Just add in whatever it is that you want your person to do and use that little lyric from that song to help them get ready in the morning. It's a good day to get dressed. It's a good day to have a great meal. Just whatever you can put in there can help them with whatever task it is you're asking them to do. Michael Tout, as we spoke about earlier, his research also found that after 4 weeks of listening to their favorite music daily, participants' brain had a greater density of white matter. And if you have an increase in white matter density or volume in a certain area of the brain, that means that there are more highways that are active between the neurons. And essentially, there's more traffic going on in the brain. A dead neuron cannot be brought back to life. So with our dementia people, we're not claiming that music is fixing what's going on or able to repair, but we're getting more access and moving around what's damaged in the brain to preserve what is still there and really bolster those connections of those preserved neurons. We build as much as we can around what has already been destroyed. So some tips and strategies. Assess when and how music can support your daily caregiving rhythm. This is really important. Before you get started with anything, where can you fit music into your day? Is morning a good time? Is your person having a hard time getting out of bed in the morning? Let's put together a playlist that's specifically for the morning. Or our person is experiencing sundowning in the afternoon. Let's get ahead of that by having our afternoon playlist, which sounds different than our morning playlist. So really assessing where music can support you in your caregiving daily rhythm. And if there's anything I want you to take out of this presentation today, it's that preferred music is the key. Your person's personal life playlist is going to be the most beneficial for you. So really knowing your person, and if you aren't sure what their personal preferences are. I always like to say start at the age of 15 to about 25, because that's really where we develop our musical identity, so to speak. We're really learning about ourselves. We're coming out of adolescence into adulthood. And so a lot of our life is defined around that time, that age range in our life. You might want to give information about the song. I help with that through the Music Box Initiative and the booklet that you'll receive, but it's easy to just look up a quick tip about the song that's being played that maybe your person's singing along to, and you could say, hey, I learned that this song came out in 1966. You were 15 at that time, or, just a little tidbit of information about the song and how it might relate to your person. And that can help spark a conversation. You want to pre-make playlists. I make one for you based on your intake form for the Music Box Initiative, but this is something that you can do at home. And you want to, if you're using something like Spotify, you want to give those songs that your person likes a thumbs up on that platform, because it helps with the algorithm to recommend more songs that your person might like. Okay. And you might want to have different songs for different times of day or different moods that your person is in. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the presentation as well. You want to have a pair of headphones, because sometimes you don't always want to be listening to music and you want your person to have maybe an independent moment. And so we can just have our playlist ready to go and put on some headset for them to experience by themselves. Using trial and error, seeing how your person is engaging with the music. Are they singing along or are they not? If they're trying to look to do something else, then maybe that's not a song that interests them. So just really being hyper aware of how your person is responding to the music is going to be helpful. And then, of course, we want to consider the environment. I know that every Thursday in the afternoon, my lawn guy comes, and that's probably not a time that I want to start playing some music, because that's too much stimulation for a person, right? They're receiving all kinds of data, and as their brain changes, it's hard for them to decipher the sounds, and so it might be more agitating to them if there are other sounds that are going on, or if the dryer is going, the washing machine, the dishwasher, anything that has a loud humming sound might not be the right environment to be listening to music if it's going to be out loud and on speakers, if the dog is barking, things like that. So we just want to be detectives, just really being aware of our surroundings and what's going on. We experiment with sound. We can start soft, increase as needed. If our person is wincing or just kind of, pulling into themselves, the music may be too loud. So we want to be aware of those things. And if they're enjoying it, enjoy it with them. Mirror their expressions, right? If they're smiling, you want to smile back. If they're clapping, you clap with them. Whatever it is that they're doing, we want to reciprocate and do it with them as well. And we can always ask about the music, and we ask from a place of curiosity rather than seeking the right answer. We just want to get our person talking and reminiscing. So if you're not a musician, I just want to cover there's 4 main elements to music. And the first being melody, right? We all know that most songs have a melody to them. And this is a recognizable tune that's pleasing arrangement of sounds and notes. There's rhythm, and that's a pattern in time, just like the pattern of our heartbeat. There's harmony, and that's 2 or more complementary pitches sung or played simultaneously. And dynamics, fast, slow, loud, soft. So if you want to start using melody with the person that you're caring for, just the little song that I sang earlier, if you want to start exploring how that feels in your voice and being able to sing a little song, sing it to yourself, before you present it to your person. If you're feeling insecure about it, you may, to build up your own confidence, you might sing in the shower, you might hum it first, and then add the words softly as you feel comfortable. You might want to just sing it on a syllable. Sometimes our person may have a perseveration. They may have a phrase or a word that they're saying over and over again, or a sound that they're saying over and over again. You can validate them by taking that phrase or that sound that they're making and put that into the melody of a song that's familiar for them. I hear a lot of people say that they're tone deaf. Okay, and so anybody can sing. Less than 2% of the country is actually tone deaf, and it is something called congenital amusia. But we can all make sound and match pitch, most of us. So I encourage you to really explore that in your own voice and how that feels. Humming is a profound sound, and it has there's been a lot of research about the idea of humming. There's a whole book called The Humming Effect. And this is a simple and profound sound. Research has shown that the act of humming is not only soothing, but it can help reduce stress, heart rate, and blood pressure while increasing those feelings of calm and increasing our oxytocin hormone, which is our love hormone. It makes us feel good and feel happy. So rhythm, if you want to start using rhythm with your person, I encourage you to get yourself some rhythmic instruments. I've got some here, but with rhythm, you might want to have a rhythmic conversation. So that might look like having a frame drum and playing a rhythm on one side and inviting your person to play a different rhythm on the other side of the drum. Copying a pattern that they're doing. If they're clacking two rhythm sticks together, invite them to tap them together, and then you repeat that pattern, or you come with a different pattern. And that's called a rhythmic conversation. You can tap or beat the sound of their name, a sound of their favorite food, or a phrase that they're saying. Imitating the sound of the heartbeat that we talked about earlier. Boom, 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 boom. Using that with a percussion instrument. That's a familiar rhythm that we can always start with. Exploring instruments together, scratching the surface, tapping the surface with our fingers, making the sound of raindrops, having a call and response. So engaging your person that way by having a familiar rhythm that they might know. Boom, boom, clap, we will rock you, from Queen, something like that. This call and response where they have to finish the phrase. You can also do that with lyrics. You can start the sun will come out, and then wait for them to say tomorrow. So just engaging them in that way can be really fun and powerful. Using music to increase motor movement, those gross motor skills, right? The goal isn't always to exercise, but to get them moving. There's research around the idea of crossing midline really can help activate both parts of the brain. So inviting our person to clap to the right, clap to the left, clap overhead or down below, using the instruments from your music box if you receive one, can really help stimulate the brain that way and helping with their gross motor movement. Okay. So using music in a multi-sensory experience. So we want to incorporate, so we have our auditory experience, so that's listening to music. We want to incorporate a visual aspect. So that might be looking at a video on YouTube of the song being played, and is it a scene from a famous movie or something like that, or simply looking at a picture. If it's their wedding song, we're going to be looking at pictures from their wedding album. We might want to incorporate in an olfactory sensory, so that would be smelling something. So we might have some aromatherapy, or we might be baking bread or cooking something while listening to music. Taste, we could incorporate music during a snack time. And then touch, so incorporating a fidget blanket or with an instrument. A lot of the instruments that I chose for the Music Box Initiative have like a tactile experience, and so they have texture to them. And so, all of that is really good for the brain while we're doing multiple sensory activities. So we can use music for relaxation and stimulation. There's something called the ISO principle, and that's music's ability to match or alter our mood. And so so if our person is having a hard time in the mornings getting out of bed, essentially we want to start with relaxing music, smooth jazz, classical music, anything that has 80 beats per minute or slower, just some instrumental music. And then over the course of a couple songs, we're going to increase that to something more upbeat and energizing, some big band music, some dance music, rock and roll, whatever it is that your person likes. We're going to move our way into that that kind of tempo. Same goes for if your person's feeling agitated and they're pacing the room and walking back and forth. We want to meet them where they're at. So we're going to start with something that is really energizing. And we're going to start with that big band or that marching music or something, really upbeat that that they will like. And over the course of a couple of songs, we're going to bring that back down to something that has that slower pace, that slower tempo, and move into something more relaxing to help them regulate what's going on in that moment. We can really use music at any stage as our person progresses, and being in tune with how that might change. Our person might be able to play an instrument, and over time their ability to play that instrument has changed, but we're still going to figure out how we can incorporate that or change the instrument that they're using to make it more accessible. They're no longer able to play the guitar, but they can hold a tambourine, or they can hold the guitar pick or something like that to help them feel connected to that music. And as the care partner, I really encourage you to embrace your own musicianship. You have a connection to music. It's not always going to be about your person and their preferences, but your preferences matter as well, to use as a way for you to manage your emotions, kind of maybe work through your feelings of grief, or echoing your emotions, how you're feeling at the time as well. So use it as a tool for both of you. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the Music Box Initiative. This is a grant-funded project. It's free of charge to care partners, memory care facilities. It's currently available in the Winter Park Library for rental, and there's a collaboration coming with the Orange County Public Library System and memory care communities. But essentially, you'll receive a box that looks like this. This little cardboard box, the logo. And inside the box, you'll receive this booklet that is curated just for you and your person. And inside, I have some information from this presentation. So you have access to it, those tips and strategies and the benefits of music. There's a page with a QR code that links to a YouTube playlist where I am explaining all of the instruments. You'll get a 20-song playlist, and this is based on the information that you give me. So the more detailed you can be with that, the better I can hone in on your person's preferences. But this is a tool for the caregiver, so they don't have to start from scratch and look these songs up. They can just go in order. There's 20 of them, and they can go ahead and have that ready to go so they can play for their person whenever they need. And then within the booklet, there's also 5 engagement activities. And so that might look like recommending a song, like the song Imagine by the Beatles. Offer a choice between an egg shaker or the tambourine. Listen to the lyrics as you play along to the recording. This song was released in 1971. This song instantly became a cultural, iconic anthem that has been played for generations. The lyrics speak of hope for a world of peace, unity, and harmony. So that is a launching place for conversation. And then I also include some meaningful questions. Why do you think this song became so popular? That's a simple question. And they don't have to have the right answer. They just need to engage with you and to talk, and you might get some really interesting responses. What would a world be like without conflict? What does that look like to you? What does unity mean to you? And how do you make the world a better place? And you can modify these questions for your person. But again, I have used this technique in a memory care setting, and people of all places in their dementia journey have been able to engage with those kinds of questions in some way. We just pause and wait for a response, right? Our person, we need to learn to be okay with pauses and silence, right? It may take our person 90 seconds to respond. So just wait a minute and see what happens. Your booklet also includes all the lyrics to all of the songs, additional resources, so additional literature around music and dementia and caregiving, as well as where to find affordable in-home virtual music therapy. I've also included a couple of songs. So this was a 60s and 70s themed box. And so there's your visual component that you could be looking at a picture of the Beatles while you're listening to one of their songs. And then in the back, there's also a list of meaningful questions for you to answer and a place for you to write down any memories that came up during your conversations. Was that musical activity successful? What changes need to be made? How long was the activity, and what music was used? And that way, part of that is for me, so I can help, build the program to what the caregiver needs. And so that was my intent in the beginning, but also for the caregiver, just to be able to adapt and be flexible as our person changes. There are some people who have received the box, and I love the picture of this lady in the pink jacket. She has been playing her drum, and in this clip she says I'm in heaven. And her daughter learned that she apparently had always wanted a drum her whole life, but her mom never gave her one, and so she said that she finally got the drum she always wanted. So I thought that was so sweet. I just have a couple more slides. We do have the free library, and in the free library, I put books about music and dementia and how caregivers can use it. There's more skills in there. A lot of the resources that I talk about at the end of your Music Box booklet, I have put in the free library that's outside of our organization. And then if you do support the work that we're doing here, we have a QR code and a place to donate on our website. There's no pressure, but if you or someone you know would love to support our mission, we would love and appreciate that. So thank you all so much for being here. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. And I hope that you go out and use music in some way for yourself or for your person, or go to a local theater, or just engage in the arts in some way. It's really good for the soul.